I think it wasn't that hot.
Welcome to another exciting edition of 3D Politics. Tom McKay here, your host. I've got all three of the Davids. Pulled David.
Come on in!
I'm on the table, guys. It's okay.
He
They just need to hear my voice.
He just come in from elk hunting.
I am loaded for bear. That's
You get any
true.
help?
And I'm still wearing this hat despite being disappointed with the president today. But go ahead,
Oh,
Tom.
David D'Ambroso, David
gonna-
Oldham, David Van, 3D Politics. Did you have a pretty good tax weekend there, David?
I didn't get to go shopping and screw the government. In fact, because
you screwed the government.
Stealing money from the government.
actually, no, I worked, and some of my money before I even get paid, the government takes their cut out of my hard work.
That's weird. What kind of deal do you have with them?
You know, it's called withholding. Yes, and I will not withhold.
We never withhold our love from you, dude.
Yes.
So-
Now that you've ruined my evening, no.
Well, at least somebody got laid. The government has a way of doing that. You know, the Democratic debates came and went, and then the news cycle got taken up with all this important stuff. So let's not forget the Democratic debate. There was a lot of things to discuss and pour over and parse some of the ridiculous things that were said. It's clear, though, that the Democratic Party is pushing socialism. Bernie got to start off the night, and then they all had their little flavor of the best way to push socialism. But I wanted to invite the Davids to discuss for the learning public here the definition of a right. Now, rights are free, and they are not prepaid. That is, rights cannot involve money. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, otherwise they're not free, are they?
That would be correct. But what I guess what I'm saying is they continue to mention this idea that, in fact, one of them said, if we can get health care to be a right, well, that indicates that it's not one now. So if we can get health care to be a right, that would mean that they would have some sort of access to health individuals in the healthcare industry.
Well, healthcare is a service which involves somebody serving you, caring for you. So for you to be your right, I must then become a slave to you if I'm a healthcare provider.
Sounds good.
If it's a right.
Sounds like revenge.
So let's take a step back. Let's understand all rights are individual. Okay? They think of yourself, it's what some economists now call, and the Enlightenment philosophers dealt with extensively, it's where we get our law from, is what they call the Robinson Crusoe story or principle.
Right.
So if you're on an island or in the world by yourself, you can do whatever you want, and the only bounds are nature itself.
Okay, now you're talking about natural rights.
That is what a
Sounds like.
what a right is.
I just to put it in context,
Yes.
people talk about constitutional rights, many of which are just a restating of what is
Well,
a natural right.
let's understand that all natural rights are covered in the Constitution.
Yeah.
Every last thing you can imagine is
That Ninth
covered in
Amendment, right? That
through the
covers
Ninth
everything
Amendment,
else.
which is the catch-all.
It's probably the least popular amendment, don't you think?
Well, it's the one that's
For
the most-
government.
it's the one most perverted. But and so just watch Kavanaugh's Google Kavanaugh Cruz discussion during, and you'll find out just how little they care about our unenumerated rights. But
Well, you guys hit on it, though. These constitutional rights, they're self-evident, right? The Constitution, even in its documentation, states that this is just a codification of your rights that already exist. Your
Yeah, well,
God-given rights.
it's
just
not.
for
It's
existence.
yes. In all the argumentation, all the surrounding the Bill of Rights and things like that, the founders were all agreed, whether they were for or against the Bill of Rights, that it was a codification to guarantee that our rights would not later be taken away from us by tyrants.
Worked out pretty well so far.
Which happened anyway, even though it's written down.
Can I say something?
So-
At that time, the Constitution's founding, the states individually had all the rights, and they were
No.
delegating.
No.
Excuse me. In the Constitution, when they were writing as entities to empower a federal entity, they were delegating some powers,
not rights.
Yes, good. I stand corrected. Over to the federal government, making the federal government their child collectively, and they as the parent.
Right. In a way, it was a division of labor.
It's not so much a parent-child as it is a master creator, a creator and creation.
I like where Tom was going with this too.
It was basically a division of labor. The states needed to have a special organization that would deal in military defense, etc.
Foreign policy.
And as David's
so,
Van's
yes,
point,
absolutely.
the child always grows up stronger than the parent eventually, and
Well,
decides where to put you off. And
just like a parent, the federal government does not exist without the union of the parents, the coming together and the compact of the parents. You know, the marriage and then the wedded bliss, resulting in the child or the creation, which becomes the federal government. So the federal government is not a party to the Constitution, whatever. They are merely employees.
Right.
And now going back to rights. So you have by right whatever you have under nature. Now, those things get modified as we come into contact with each other. You know, now I can't go swinging my stick around everywhere because I might hit somebody because
that
now
episode of The Simpsons where Bart is doing the windmill and Lisa's kicking, or maybe vice versa, and they're like, "Look, I'm not hurting you, and this is in my space," and they come precariously closer and closer.
Okay, and that's exactly it. So we now have to have some rules by which we can all get along together, but those rules cannot violate rights and say you cannot do something.
Yeah.
It's you can only go so far because that so far is now going to violate David's nose.
That's where
or
you're
something
wrong,
like.
kiddo. They do that every day.
So back
It's
to the
called
semantics.
precedence.
I teach my children to try to use the phrase prepaid instead of free because there's really nothing free. Prepaid is about as close as you can get. So when Bernie Sanders and the rest of the Democrats talk about tuition free and free health care and free, they're really talking about prepaid. What they mean is free health care. What that means is the government is going to force healthcare workers to give away their service at no cost.
Well, or they're going to steal from others to pay
It's
whoever
probably
is the
an
server.
even more complicated market perversion because we haven't had a free market, which I love this argument.
Right,
It's hilarious from, like these Cruisites or these never Trumpers. Well, he's perverting that perfectly free trade agreement we have with China right now and the EU. No, it doesn't exist. He's actually bringing about free trade by fighting fire with fire. We know this happens, right?
Sure, right.
You have a brush fire or you have a massive wildfire. So it happens, folks. It's logical. I don't know why you don't get it.
Sometimes you have to have a backfire to
Yeah,
put
exactly.
the thing out.
So, no, it almost makes sense what the socialists are suggesting, or the Democratic Party, to be redundant, because we have a Keynesian economic policy which just assumes unlimited money and unlimited monetary expansion, and that we never pay for anything.
Now,
so why not have a program that costs way more money than all the money that exists?
Keynesian, some of us wonks know what that means, but I don't have a life, okay? It means that the government needs to kind of prime the pump, and without that priming of the pump with government money, the economy, which is private sector, could not survive. It would just collapse.
Government
or it would
creates
be
jobs.
a mere shell of what it should be. And so we always need to infuse our private economy with government money. That was Keynesian theory. Okay.
Yeah, Maynard Keynes. And I did some research, and I found out that markets existed before government. So I think he was
Go
wrong.
figure. And you always get out of your spending problems by spending more money. And your indebtedness.
If you're the government, there's a famous quote. I think I've said it before. When you owe the bank $1 million, it's your problem. When you owe the bank $100 million, it's their problem. And so whoever's holding America's debt, that's your problem, guys. If you're going to loan the socialists like $120 trillion, great. I mean, that's your problem now. It's not ours.
Well, and that's very true. The problem is they may get strong enough to actually come and collect.
Well, I don't know. And so I think that's why Barack Obama might be the greatest secret patriot of all time. He was always dangling the gun ban. Meanwhile, the greatest gun salesman in all of recorded history. I think more guns were sold in his administration than
Probably
ever.
the first weekend of his.
And so maybe he was just prepping on that the defensive structure against anyone calling us out on the dead.
Even the National Weather Service bought 500,000 rounds. So, I mean,
Well, and I think that the famous cake baker scenario of making a guy do a cake for a ceremony or celebration, which was morally repugnant to his faith.
Totally hypothetical. Of
And
course.
yeah, so
Wouldn't happen.
And the courts were ordering him into servitude to make a cake he didn't want to make.
They wouldn't do that. That's both immoral and unconstitutional.
It's slavery.
Yeah.
Well, but let's go back and break down the Democrats when they're up promising all these things and trying to one up each other.
Sure.
What they're saying is, I am going to screw with the economy and steal more money to give it to more people than you are. That is their message. And it doesn't matter what kind of a face and how wimpy they look, Beto, or Buttigieg, or whomever, you know, they look like they're wimpy, but they have no problem sending in the useful idiots in the policing forces to force us to pay up.
Sure.
they're wholly contradictory. They were talking about one of the issues was we're not going to be the policemen of the world. Well, how are you going to push this Green Deal? We're going to force China and we're going to force these other things. I thought you were going to be the
And
policemen
these are
of
the
the world.
same people that are upset whenever Trump pulls troops from Syria or Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
It's campaign rhetoric.
So the plunder of people's private ownings would be considered a violation of their rights, right?
Well, of course.
Okay, so healthcare at the border. One of the things that they were talking about is it's only humanitarian to give these illegal aliens health care.
Yeah.
And my contention is that humanitarian behavior is best defined by property rights and not by humanistic ethics.
Are you talking about were they talking about when they were in custody or when they were just crossing the border and they were just...
No, they're just suggesting that the part of the welfare package that Americans pay for is to provide welfare for illegal aliens at the
Let
border.
me clarify
Okay.
that. When they go in for their, now the thing is, get asylum, okay, and you have your hearing or the date set, and then they release you into the nation.
Oh, right.
And the point is, when they release you into the nation, you take a Obamacare policy with you wherever you go.
And a lawyer. I think Kamala wants to give them each a lawyer, too.
Okay.
They have
right.
the right. Yes.
Well,
It is very interesting that illegals do not necessarily have, they don't have the rights of citizens, but there are constitutional protections that apparently the courts have decided apply to them, which is really very difficult to justify, to say then, well, I guess the entire world has rights afforded to them by the United States.
Yeah, in our federal court system of our civilian life, they just assume that it controls everything, including military affairs. And, you know, it was during the Iraq War, in Afghanistan War, we kind of had to rein it in and say, no, there are different systems of justice for enemy combatants.
Right.
They do not get ACLU lawyers.
Right.
And so,
Non-citizens don't typically
Although
have
that's going to be
citizenship.
at the next debate, they're going to try to one-up each other, the Democratic candidates, to provide top-tier ACLU attorneys for members of ISIS.
I think they're going to crack out the Cuban cigars and give them to me. All right.
well, I'd go for that.
I love how the left has essentially justified every single slippery slope argument, legitimized.
Yeah.
Now providing health care to illegals, stating that there are an infinite number of genders, stating that everyone that supports someone to the right of Stalin is a white nationalist. All this stuff, it's total ridiculousness, and the left is a meme of itself.
D'Ambroso, if you run in the Democrat primary, I'll be your campaign manager. We will offer them Swiss chocolate, Cuban cigars, and Russian vodka.
in everything.
Yes,
I think
because
we'll
they have a right to it.
We'll find probably different permutations of how to offer that. What was the thing that created stuff out of nothing on Star Trek? I think that's what's required, right, for socialism to
It was
work.
the Big Bang, wasn't it?
I don't. Well, okay, maybe they have
Wasn't that the food?
the replicator. It's
The
whatever you
food replicator.
whatever you want. It wasn't just food. It was like anything. And then you had the holodeck, so you just campaign on that.
Oh,
In
this
the
is
words of
second
Pedro,
generation.
may all your dreams come true.
That's it.
What else?